From the east, the Hyksos in with a terrible weapon, the war chariot. For 2 centuries, Egypt bowed under the yoke of foreign domination. The Egyptian wrested the horse and the chariot from the invader and turned these instruments of terror back against him. To the east, to the south, the war chariots thundered, and the force of Egyptian arms was felt far into Asia, deep into Nubia. Oblivious to the follies of men, the mighty Nile continued to bring life and strength to the thirsty land of Egypt. 1,600 years after Narmer first wore the double crown, Pharaoh Akhmosa, with this golden battle axe, began the 18th dynasty. The powerful new kingdom was born. At the capital city of Thebes, the East Bank is for the living. Across the river where the sun sets lies the necropolis, the city of the dead. Against a backdrop of brilliant cliffs, splendid temples and tombs enshrine forever the memory of the leaders of the new kingdom. The temple of Hatshepsut reaps the full benefit of its dramatic natural setting. Hatshepsut, though a woman, ruled as pharaoh. An able administrator, she surrounded herself with a group of powerful men who held the country in firm hands. The goddess Hathor, represented as a cow, yields strength to Hatshepsut. Obviously a woman of dynamic qualities, for her the title of queen was not enough. She declared herself king of Egypt, was depicted wearing male attire, and even the false beard of Pharaoh. She was succeeded by Tutmosis III, whose first act was to wipe out the memory of the woman who had so dominated him. Despite this initial pettiness, Tutmosis went on to become a powerful monarch in his own right. He extended the empire by conquests to the south and north to Palestine and Lebanon. This warrior king personally led his armies in 17 different campaigns. In this delicate marble miniature, Tutmosis makes offering to his gods. His personal valor was supplemented by shrewd tactics. He once introduced his troops into a beleaguered city concealed in sacks, as in the story of Ali Baba. The ladies of his court ate from gold service and kept their perfume in decorated vases. A statuette in solid gold represents Tutmosis III in the likeness of the chief god, Amun, an example of the cult of the divinity of kings. Egypt reached a height of opulence and political importance under this mightiest of empire builders. Not long after the warlike era of Tutmosis came a period of peace and prosperity under Amenhotep III. His name will ever be associated with the colossi of Memnon. "12 times the height of a man, these huge statues once guarded the entrance to his temple." For 33 centuries, these sentinels of the Theban plain have gazed across the Nile. With sightless eyes, they look to the east, to the land of the dawn, to the glories of Karnak and Luxor. This is the face of the first man in recorded history who believed in one God. Akhenaten was the great rebel. He broke with the traditional religion of many gods and became the first monotheist. There was but one God, Aten, the sun. Aten was a gentle God. His beneficent rays end in life-giving hands. There was revolution in the arts as well. The wall paintings of Akhenaten's palace portray a new kind of realism. These new techniques also found expression in ceramics. A carnelian ring bears an unflattering likeness of the king, for he insisted on stark realism in the portrayal of his own person, even though the results were rather grotesque. Breaking sharply with the idealistic portrayal of Egypt's god kings. Akhenaten and his queen, Nefertiti. It was their dream that Egypt would follow their ideals, but the world was not yet ready. Titi, a beautiful one has come. But under this idealistic leadership, the neglected empire was crumbling. Revenues dwindled. When Akhenaten died, the cult of Aten died with him, and Egypt reverted to the worship of its multiple gods. By the time of the 18th dynasty, tombs had been despoiled to an alarming extent. The kings no longer desired to be buried in a conspicuous place. Beyond the cliffs which flanked the Theban necropolis lay a wilderness of desert hills. Deep in the valley of the tombs of the kings, they hoped to remain undisturbed throughout eternity. But this was not to be. Of all the pharaohs buried here, only one name is generally known today. Ironically, the young and unimportant King Tutankhamun was the only ruler of this period whose tomb was not plundered in ancient times. King Tut was only 19 when he died. A later and more powerful king was buried just above Tutankhamun. Debris covered the tomb entrance so effectively that it lay hidden for over 3,000 years. while every other tomb was desecrated, the young King Tut lay undisturbed among an enormous quantity of funerary equipment, designed to sustain him in the afterworld with all the pomp and panoply of Pharaoh's court. For an Egyptian monarch ruled as a god-king in life and was worshipped as a deity when he died. An ivory fan bears the royal cartouche. In addition to its powerful deities, Egypt had a host of household gods, such as the god Base, whose function belied his fierceness. Appealing to the vanity of the ladies, his realm included the overlordship of cosmetics. The back of Tutankhamun's golden throne shows the king and queen in an informal domestic scene. A golden dagger and sheath, prototype of blades familiar throughout history. The inner coffin of solid gold, lavishly covered with chaste design and inlaid with semi-precious stones, contained the mummy of Tutankhamun. The magnificence of these trappings of a minor king leads us to wonder what must once have lain in the resting places of the great conquerors and statesmen. As a result of the political and religious tensions created by the Autumn Revolution, the power of the ruling house was undermined. The 18th dynasty ended in political and social decay, and the neglected empire lay in ruins. Just at this time, when the new kingdom seemed doomed, the general Horemheb came to the fore. This astute politician had managed to remain in favor in a period of conflicting factions and ideas. He cleverly maneuvered himself onto the throne. Pharaoh Horemheb, the strong man, saved Egypt from certain ruin. His social reforms strengthened the home economy, and his campaigns restored much of the former empire. Horemheb fully restored the power of the traditional religion of Amun, with its worship of multiple gods. The mythological trinity of Egypt is built around Osiris, Isis, and Horus. Osiris was a legendary king who was destroyed by a treacherous brother. He was raised up again with the help of his devoted wife, Isis, and avenged by their son, Horus. Anubis, the jackal, was in charge of the funeral rites and the guide of the dead in the hereafter. The walls and ceilings of the tombs of the kings were lavishly adorned with religious symbols and figures. Stylized stars decorated the ceilings of some of the tombs. A row of ram-headed sphinxes leads to the great temple of Amun at Karnak, the most extensive ever built by man. This complex of pylons, obelisks, courts, halls, and inner chambers was 2,000 years in construction. Succeeding monarchs from the Middle Kingdom to the dawn of the Christian era here enshrined their beliefs and accomplishments. Standing in the midst of these mighty works is the forest of columns called the Hypostyle Hall. The papyrus and lotus represent the union of Upper and Lower Egypt. A colossal red granite scarab overlooks the sacred lake. The Temple of Karnak, majestic even in ruins, bears silent witness to the faith and skill of those who labor to raise it. While the royal tombs are concerned with religion and the gods, the tombs of the nobles depict with realism the life of the times. It is these lowly tillers of the soil who carried the load of empire. In the fields of a huge estate, the harvest is in progress. Wheat is cut with a scythe, transported on a pole, threshed under the hooves of the oxen, and cleaned by winnowing. In the afterworld, the throwing stick brings down fowl on the wing. In this happy hunting ground, game is abundant and the waters well stocked. The noble lord and his lady, who certainly never did so in life, plow the heavenly fields and harvest the wheat and pull the flax. The superb color values remaining in these paintings over 3,000 years old, are a credit to the technical knowledge of the artists. While Anubis administers to the deceased, the professional mourners prove their grief. A fun-loving race, the Egyptians enjoyed music and the dance. Some ancient cartoonist may have used this papyrus to record fairy tales or fables, or as a Gilbert and Sullivan satire on the behavior of court officials. But death and the life in the hereafter was their most important consideration. A page from the Book of the Dead records the scene of the Last Judgment, while Anubis weighs the heart against the goddess of truth. Osiris sits in judgment. The Temple of Luxor was constructed during the height of the Empire period, over 3,000 years ago. It contains some of the finest examples of colonnade construction and colossal statuary of the New Kingdom. Lost in the shadows of the magnificence of the king stands the queen. Seti I built the Temple of Abydos, close to the legendary grave of the god Osiris. The great delicacy of the white limestone reliefs is outstanding in temple decoration. Additions were made by Seti's son, Ramses II. Here he hunts the wild bull with the assistance of the crown prince. Ramses II was one of the first cowboys. Of all the rulers who ever lived, Ramses II, or as he would rather be called, Ramses the Great, appeared to have the most insatiable hunger for publicity. During his 66 years on the throne, this supreme egotist boasted in stone throughout the length of Egypt. Where he did not build himself, he usurped the works of his predecessors by substituting his own inscriptions. While still a young man, Ramses led his forces into Syria. Near Kadesh, his dangerously extended army was caught off balance by the hordes of the enemy. The king and a portion of his army were trapped. Ramses and his men, heavily outnumbered, fought valiantly for hours. The timely arrival of the main Egyptian force saved the day, and the Hittites were driven off. Although he returned home with his royal skin intact, the purpose of the campaign, the invasion of Syria, could hardly be called a success. But forever afterwards, the king boasted of the Battle of Kadesh as a tremendous victory, and highly exaggerated versions were carved on temple walls from Nubia to the Delta. At the Ramesseum, he erected the most colossal statue of all time in one huge block of granite. Though an earthquake destroyed this enormous monument, more than enough great structures remain to carry this extraordinary personality across the ages. The vitality of the new kingdom carried through the 20th dynasty and ended with the 11th pharaoh to bear the name of Ramses. Then followed a period of decline, and Egypt never again regained its position as a political world power. However, in the 26th dynasty, there was a renaissance in art. An attempt was made to return to the great artistic traditions of the earlier periods. The Hippo goddess was the patron of childbirth and guardian of women and children. The cat goddess found a place in the hearts of the populace as goddess of love and joy, of music and the dance. In the late dynastic period, Egyptian art continued traditionally, despite the influence of foreign domination. Then, out of the north came Alexander, whom men call the Great. In this ancient land he sheathed his bloody sword and conquered with his mind. Proclaimed born of the sun god, he became a living deity. The Greek god Zeus and the Egyptian Ammon merged into Zeus Ammon, the all-powerful. Thus began the 300-year reign of the Ptolemies, which ended with Cleopatra. These Greek kings of Egypt adopted the religious practices and the cult of the divinity of kings, as shown in all their temples. Perhaps the outstanding beauty of the Ptolemaic temples lay in the enormous, unbroken plains of the walls. At Idfu, the great god Horus is enshrined in his own temple. The powerful influence of the hawk god ruled the minds of men for thousands of years. On an island in the Nile in Upper Egypt stands the Temple of Philae. The requirements of a later civilization caused the level of the river to be raised, thus flooding the island. The Temple of Philae, still worthy of its ancient name, the Jewel of the Nile. But when we think of ancient Egypt, we look back to the time when Pharaoh wore proudly the double crown, the great days of the new kingdom. At such a time, Ramses II ruled, and far up the river in Nubia, the great temple of Abu Simbel was carved from the living rock. The colossi of Abu Simbel are as gigantic as those of Memnon. But here, the features remain intact, and the powerful faces express supreme confidence. Majestic, calm. Inside the temple, 8 more colossal statues of the king form the pillars of the central hall. From across the Nile, this fine cameo, in its perfect setting, sparkles in the waters. But the forces of nature which level mountains play scornfully with the mightiest works of men. Slowly, inexorably, the stone head crumbles. Someday the proud Ramses will be ground into the dust. Someday, the relentless sands will reclaim all of the glory of ancient Egypt. What then remains? What legacy survives? What of value to mankind for all the thousands of years of imperial splendor? The true glory will live as long as the spirit of man seeks beauty. For Egypt is a monument, not to the conqueror and the statesman, but to the artist, the architect, the painter, the sculptor, whose works will remain in the minds of men when pomp and ceremony are but a whispering echo in the corridors of time.